This will definitely be holiday volume. Pretty decent signals from the overnight, though. Globex basically opened up and then just started selling. Like you basically ended up with at the exact same spot that we had exhaustion yesterday. And then you got a little bit of exhaustion very early this morning. But we're on a 500 vol chart, so you can tell if we look at like this is all of yesterday's session, and then this is today's. We're not really doing much volume here to speak of, which is probably a good time to test, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Is this is our first live stream, and we wanted low stakes in case of any technology issues or anything like that, but we'll stick around and make sure nothing breaks on our side and hang out for a little bit. And peek over here to higher time frame. So yesterday we got rejected. Was yesterday basically right where Globex, right where we closed overnight. We got rejected at this edge of this week's value. Came down, tested the point of control, and now we're back up here near the edge of value again on the NASDAQ, which is like 37.15-ish. I'm not sure this is even going to move around all that much. Just want everybody to remind anyone that is watching the stream that this stream is going to be about 7 to 12 seconds delayed from live. That's the case for anything going live on YouTube. Just a technology delay. But we're not really running this stream for for people to come on here and like follow my trading. We're here to, I will take some trades on live stream, probably not this morning because there's not really going to be much volume or price movement if I had to guess. I mean, we're technically open right now, and the NASDAQ is in a 30 to 40 point range, which is very narrow. But we do plan, I will take trades during normal streams, but we're not here to, be a signal service. And the delay on our stream is also variable. So you could be 10 seconds behind, you could be 15 seconds behind. So at least with the way that I trade, I'm going to be taking a pretty specific entry and Um, I wouldn't want anybody to necessarily try to follow along with that. We're here to show some of my thought process whenever I'm watching the NASDAQ trade and how we use our tool set here. Um, but hey, so far no tech issues as far as I can tell. It's all fine on my side. Um, so normally, if we were doing a non-holiday session, the places of obvious interest here are this zone down in here. And yeah, I mean, when we rallied yesterday, I mean, this is the, zoom back out. This is the all-time high on the NASDAQ. We got within, let's see, 5, about 200 points. Right now we're like, let's call it 31,000 is basically the all-time high. So we're sitting here about 300 some points off of it. Um, and this is one thing that I really actually like about volume charts is it's a very quick way for me to, come in the morning and be like, well, just based on session length, like how many candles do we have? Should I be playing with this at all? Well, NQ trades in a 3 point range. I'm gonna look at yesterday's session. Um, most of my settings are set to default right now for all of the studies. The only two, I guess, that are slightly different um, is on Delta Flow. I have my bars before signal on exhaustion set to 0 instead of the default at 2, um, which shows me the signal a little bit sooner at the risk of not having some cooldown bars. Um, and so you can get false signals, or you can get, times where like it'll show an exhaustion signal, and you can still get those even with this setting. So my setting is just a tiny bit more aggressive. And the other study is on Phantom. I have it set to RTH data only. So that's that's a study that I particularly like to switch to just using RTH data once we've got out of the Globex session, because sometimes in the ranking system, with the way that it puts markers on the chart, they'll get dominated by overnight price action depending on how much volume we've done. And I want to see these signals show up live. I doubt that we're going to really see any um, during this live session because the volume is so light, but that's a typical move that I do. So you can see yesterday's session with RTH only for Phantom, which is looking for false breakouts or breakouts that aren't backed by volume. Um, so we have this what these bigger bubbles and medium bubbles are at the top. Um, So this one was actually like right at the open. And then yesterday we just kind of, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, and then a little sell off into close. So um, pretty normal bullish price action. Just every dip got bought. Um, I wasn't quite sure how light the volume would be. I wasn't quite sure how light the volume would be this morning, um, but it's very light. I'm just going to scroll through and look at some of the other sessions this week. This was the 17th, which was FOMC. So we can see that volatility showing up here. And honestly, like pretty choppy FOMC. I mean, this is like your initial move down and then back up and then back down again. Um, and then like once the market closed, it just like went into grind up mode. And then Thursday or Wednesday night in Globex, it just, made new highs. I don't really watch any news, but I know there's still quite a bit of uncertainty going on um, in the Middle East, but there's not enough volume to really react to that. And I always think about these sessions as like a bit of a standoff because even if somebody big wanted to sell, there's not enough volume for them to probably get uh, good prices. So we're just gonna churn in this small range. And I used the 30-minute opening range. So we haven't even set that, but it looks like it's gonna be like 40 or 50 points right now. We're not moving around that much, but typically I don't actually keep. You'll see me every once in a while uh, double click or scroll on my DOM. I don't have my depth of market set up so that I don't have it set up so that it auto scrolls. Um, I just I really hate that feature. I think that like in my opinion, like the depth of market is like one of those sort of, I don't know what I want to call it, but like kind of like monkey brain windows where like the more that you watch it bounce around really fast, like you start getting FOMO, you start throwing in orders where you're like, oh, like I think it's gonna go without me. I think it's gonna go without me. And so I try my best. Like let's say, that I was like, well, I'm really interested in getting long at this level at 560. Like I'll just scroll down until I'm sitting around 560. And then I'll kind of go about whatever else I'm doing. I'll probably still pay attention to whatever's happening on the chart. But I don't actually, I put my DOM where I'm interested in executing. Um, and sometimes, not today because there's absolutely no one down here buying. But depending on how far or close I am to price, um, I can see if there's anybody else interested in that same idea, if there's some larger buyers or larger sellers, depending on what kind of move I'm looking for. And it keeps me from, watching this And um, because I think there's this idea that if you watch the Dom, you're gonna see you're gonna find like this magic trade. And like, yeah, maybe like some big buyer shows up in here and like I see absorption or whatever, but we're trading right in the middle of the overnight value. We know this is a holiday session. Even if it wasn't a holiday session, like we're not in a place where I'm interested in getting into position, even if I see the quote magic signal, right? Um, so I just choose not to watch it until it gets where I want. And I also don't have it set to auto scroll because like for me, it's easier if like let's say we want to buy 650. So I put 650 in my window and we come down and we hold it for a second and then we get all the way off my DOM. That's a pretty clear sign to me that I'm like, okay, well, we didn't hold 650 and I can wait for it to climb back up and see, okay, we're back above 650. So it's kind of like its own like mini alert system. Not to mention that like the auto scroll for me seemed to always happen about the time that I was going to take position. And so it would auto scroll and then I'd be like, great, here's where I'm going to, click to put in my order. And then I would put my order in at the wrong price. So it didn't take me very long to turn that off. Yes, we're aware that it's a bank holiday. We're only here to test our first live stream, make sure all of our tech is working. So had a low hanging fruit day to make sure that nothing broke on our end and um, come on here and say hi to all you lovely people. So I think like, as we're like just barely trading any volume here, um, and let's take a look at kind of where we're sitting at in a higher time frame. Um, so this is this week, and actually let me put on so it's easier to see. Time access, use defaults. Start of week enabled. Don't need that on here. And I really don't need that or that, just so it's easier to see. All right. So this gap up, I think, is from roll, not from an actual gap up. But regardless, they filled that. And really just kind of a D-shaped week. Most of the volume concentrated in the middle of the week. We got kind of close during FOMC to like test this top from last week. Um, but if we zoom out, we can kind of say, I mean, the ball is for the bulls to drop. You're only 200 to 300 points off the high. So we don't really look at macro stuff because we're trading intraday most of the time with our tool set, but um, still having awareness of like what's going on in the world is good. It's very nice of you, but we do not we're not hiring right now, so don't need anybody that works for us, but always appreciate the excitement. Someone this morning pinged me asking about, um, I think we had released documentation either yesterday or the day before, for an upcoming small update to Scalper. Um, and it says 2.01, I think, on the website, but um, it's still 2.0 in the release. So we're releasing this weekend. I'll put more info in the Discord um, this afternoon. So that should be up by this weekend. But our documentation usually goes up like a day or two before the actual release. And there's not anything off the top of my head. We'll probably recommend that Motive Wave users update. We have a few cosmetic things that have popped up during since we released 2.0 about 3 weeks ago, but there's not anything major. Um, and there's a very small update for NinjaTrader, but it's cosmetic. It's literally like a UI color change, so not a required update there. Also, if you're in our Discord, there was we did a post yesterday that we have a new weekly blog that's going up, and that's going to be um, we're calling it Delta Reads, but it's basically going to be sort of a weekly summary of the ended week. So this week's Delta read will be about this particular week. So on Saturday or Sunday when it's released, um, there will be um, a pretty lengthy, not super long, but very detailed look at what the Delta picture did for the micro contracts um, throughout the week. And so there'll be volume profiles, there will be analysis that we do internally, proprietary analysis on the Delta throughout the week. And um, that's a place for you to go and take a look at. And you're able to sign up and get emails. So you can check that out. You can go to scalperiq.com and click on blogs, and it'll be the first post up. So go take a look at that. Um, to be honest, this week that we will do analysis on will be probably a little bit of a mess because it's both roll and a holiday week. Um, but we'll see what that analysis looks like. I guess we'll find out in like 3 minutes if they have any algorithms turned on at all. Usually there's some algorithms that kick off as we roll over to 9 a.m. But I think most smart firms turn them off when we're trading this light. So far, no streaming issues, which is great. Also, no platform issues. Um, in the last like month or so, we've had some issues around the open from our rhythmic feeds of kind of locking up, but it hasn't been consistent enough to sort of narrow down where that's coming from. We always do work to make sure that it's not coming from, any of our studies, but it's happening on the platform regardless. So barely put in any new candles, excuse me, since the open. So this is a 500 vol chart, 500 volume chart, which means you get a new candle every time 500 contracts have been traded. We aren't trading 500 contracts right now. So that's why, for a linear chart, if we had it up on minutes or seconds, it would progress regardless of how much volume we're doing. But our study kit works the best on volume charts. So that's technically the opening range getting set for the 30-minute opening range. But yeah, I mean, we'll be here for, you know, another 45 minutes to an hour. I think they close at noon central. Equity markets aren't open. Um, it's a bank holiday. So futures just trading on vibes. Every once in a while on sessions like this, you'll get some kind of maybe move in terms of like, it'll be like, you know, everybody thinks there's going to be no volume and then suddenly we push down for somewhere, but I don't expect this to do anything particularly interesting. Um, and since we're not really going to be, you know, I'm not going to predict the future, but I'll take a pretty good guess that we're not going to do much price movement. So, with that being said, probably going to be a pretty good winning week for the buyers. Um, the Nasdaq is going to finish off its high by like 300-ish points. Um, sellers in sellers in shambles again. But when it keeps making new highs on the daily chart, it's not ready to go down yet. No matter what, no matter what news cycle you're watching or anything else, it just comes down to, I feel like in the current environment, I feel like I have non-trading people ask me, thinking that just because I trade futures markets that I'm somehow a macro expert as well. But I'm like, I don't know why markets are up this high. It's not really my job. My job is to capture what the NASDAQ does for 25 to 75 points at a time and try not to lose money in the process of doing that. Um, I think that like it's, in my opinion, probably harder to be an intraday trader, um, harder to be an intraday trader if you have strong macro bias. Um, because sure, the things that happen on a macro time frame or, that aren't directly related to volume or delta on the Nasdaq have an effect on what the markets do, but maybe not in the time frame that you're sitting here trading. Um, our plan is to do this, try to do this once a week. I don't want to fully commit us to that yet, but that's what's kind of what we're looking at. We have a we have a unique tool set, um, and so I think even though we have quite a bit of documentation on our website, as well as install tutorials on YouTube, that I think there's I think there's utility in watching it work live rather than looking at a hindsight chart. So if we find that people find value in it, then we'll keep doing it for sure. I promise we won't do it just on bank holidays. I hope people have some plans for if you're one of the lucky people to have the day off. I hope you have some fun plans for the weekend. Unfortunately, I think my own fun plans involve mowing my lawn. While I'm here, let me just go over, an overview of how some of these tools work. So let's just take the obvious ones right now. So let me actually turn off some of the other ones so that we can do this. All right, so we're going to turn off our zones, and we're going to turn off we'll keep the exhaustion markers, and I already have the delta pivots off. And I'm actually going to turn this one off for just a second. So, and we'll turn off Phantom as well. So let's focus on just the one study, which right now is our delta flow study, which is our oldest study and the one that people are most familiar with from us. So it's doing the candle coloring, and it's doing the exhaustion markers at the low and the high. And the way our exhaustion markers work, kind of in a nutshell, without getting too technical, is they look for a long sequence of what we call hot bars, or extreme volume bars, bars that are extreme from a one-sided standpoint, so sellers or buyers dominating that period of the auction. And it basically has to go through a certain number of candles, which you can define by this setting here, bars before exhaustion. So if you get 9 bars and then buyers jump in on a sell-off, you won't get an exhaustion marker print. If you get 10 and you get that, then you will, or any number higher than this. But this is your minimum for that. And then the next one below that is bars before signal. So basically, you need a particular sequence. So like if you're set to 10 and 2, didn't intend that to be the driving, where your hands are in the steering wheel, but that's what it is. So selling off, you get your minimum of 10 bars. And then the reason why you would maybe want a bars before signal, like why people are going to ask, why do I not just have it set to 0 all the time? I do tend to have it set to 0 most of the time, but the bars before signal means that you have to have 2 cool off bars before this signal will print. If you get 1 cool off bar, or if you have your settings set to higher, and it doesn't meet that threshold, then, and sellers take back over, then you won't get this marker printing. So I like to know when the auction's weakening right away. So I'm willing to take a little bit of extra risk that this signal might be early. But we left those settings in there for anybody that might feel differently about how they read order flow. And the candle coloring is our own special sauce blend of delta and price action and volume composite, so that you don't technically need to be watching every tick on the DOM to come in, or if you're late to the session or whatever it might be, and figure out, who's in control of the auction right now. So as we have these bright colors, it's pretty clear that, buyers are in charge of the auction here. controlling the auction, even on the pullback. You get a little bit of selling here. And right now, very fitting for our holiday session, but the candles are pretty much completely neutral right now. So those are our exhaustion markers. I'm going to turn on our zones. I'm going to turn off our exhaustion markers for a second. So our zones flag areas of delta extremes. And so they tend to be places where, I would be more interested in this zone because it's outside of value. This one that's sitting right below the point of control, if this was a non-holiday session, I really wouldn't probably be looking at that. And all of our signals are ranked by strength. So if I only have one zone on my chart, that's the strongest area of aggressive delta participation on the chart. This would be the second most, third most, fourth most, etc. And obviously, since we're not really trading much at the moment, that's not super helpful to have them all stacked on top of each other. But that's why we allow people to turn off what they do or don't want. So those are our zones. And can turn that off now. And then we have our delta pivots. So our delta pivots look for aggressive pushes from buying to selling or selling to buying. And it's not just like a, sort of like a one, like every time we flip between buying and selling, is that going to happen? It needs to be a substantially aggressive push, and everything is session ranked. So you need to be able to have some context, enough candles kind of playing out for these signals to render out. So you get one from here in the overnight. So if I zoom in, you can see buyers kind of tried to step in here, and then the next push was so aggressive that we went from kind of a neutral to greenish color all the way back down to selling, and that was kind of the start of your sell-off overnight. This one popped on just before the open, if we want to call it being open right now. So those are our delta pivot markers. See, this one showed up and then went a little sideways. They're not necessarily, none of our stuff, none of the things that you see on the chart are going to be buy or sell signals. All of these are contextual to the order flow activity for you to be able to say, oh, sellers got really aggressive back over here, and now we're kind of stuck where sellers got aggressive in the overnight session, or buyers try to take it off the open. So that's all from delta flow. If you like if you like some of this and you don't like the candle coloring for whatever reason, you can turn that off as well. So that's that study. I'm going to actually take this one off the chart for just a moment, and we'll look at impact first. And I'll actually make these lines just a little bit fatter for the stream so they're easier to see. So impact is looking for large trades, large executed trades, and we consider them large in the overall, relative to the overall session. So there's not like a contract threshold for what's deemed large. It's relative to the overall session, and these are ranked as well. So if we go down to 1, that would be the largest sort of impact, if you will, area for the session, and then this would be second most and third most. So these are areas that we would consider being interested in if they fall. If they line up with something else, a previous day low or an intraday pivot, that we might be interested in looking at them as support or resistance. So that's our impact study. And we'll take a look at Phantom. All right. So Phantom looks for areas where the order flow activity doesn't match the particular price direction. So it could be a new low on, or a new swing low, doesn't have to be a new low of day, or new swing high on volume that is not supportive. So it could be a new high on negative volume or negative delta, or a new low on positive delta. And these all go through our analytics system to be able to rank them to see if they qualify for being strong enough. So right now, we're not doing enough volume for any of these to really be something to look at. If we look at yesterday's session, we can see these pop up near some pivots. They don't always stick. These aren't like, the permanent reversal signal of all permanent reversal signals. But if we actually switch this over to RTH only, we'll get a little bit clearer. And these provided some nice areas in yesterday's session to find some local tops. And, you can use them different ways. If you happen to be long near the bottom and one of these pops up, maybe you take one off, or maybe you decide to move your stop up, or whatever it might be. So they're not necessarily like see this and jump into a short, unless you were already looking to short there, or you have some other type of reason to be doing that. But they're an early warning signal that if you're making new highs and you're seeing some of those pop up, that the auction is not super supportive at that moment for the direction that price is trying to go. I think we'll be here for like another 20 minutes or so. I hope everybody is out enjoying their Friday, and I hope most of you have the day off. Let me go ahead and put everything back on the chart here. And the other studies that are on the chart is just a daily volume profile that's native to motive wave, and the OHLC levels, so the overnight levels, those are also a native motive wave study. The tick engine that we have up here is what drives all the data to our 3 studies. You can also control theme from one place, but I'm rather particularly attached to the purple and green theme. Somebody made fun of me saying that it's the Barney theme. I said no, it's the Hulk theme or the Ninja Turtle theme. We have a few different themes to go through. You can also control whether you want to do RTH only for all studies rather than controlling RTH only from the individual studies. So you have flexibility there as well. And the blue and pink is an artifact from somebody who I learned how to trade futures from. And yeah, it's the first person that I ever saw who had candles or anything else on the chart that wasn't just the traditional red and green. And I feel like at that time I was like, oh my gosh, you can have different colored candles. Genius. Wasn't the most important thing that I took away from learning there, but Such a good signal down here that I was not awake for. 1 a.m. Central Time there. We are available for NinjaTrader as well. I just trade in Motive Wave because that was the uh, first, well, not the first platform I ever worked with, but the first futures trading platform that I really kind of stuck with for long enough to understand most of its quirks and got used to the UI and what the DOM feels like and where all the buttons are. Because every time you switch platforms, you get to relearn all of that stuff again, no matter how techy you are. Um, but we are available for NinjaTrader as well. All the tools are exactly the same. I think the quick settings menu is the only thing that's a little bit different, and that's just specific to how NinjaTrader works itself. But all of the studies are the same logic and same visuals and same controls. Anybody watching this is going to be like, wow, this is incredibly boring. I agree with you. But what I'm not bored by is that this is our first live stream and knock on some wood, but we're about 5 to 10 minutes from being done and no audio issues, um, no video issues, no platform issues. So being the lead developer here, I'm very excited when technology cooperates, even for a short period of time. So this will be a win in our books, and we'll be back next week. Um, I have to look at what day on the calendar, but we'll put that in the Discord and make sure everybody has plenty of heads up to come and join. While I'm here, I'm just going to test a couple of things. Um, so first I'm going to test whether my webcam will go on and off. Okay. So if I turn this off, see if that turns off for the live stream. So far, there we go. All right. I'm back. And that's just a test to make sure that that works. So if I need to go off camera for a minute, that I'm able to do that. And just noting, as I said, and I will probably continue to remind folks when we're here that we are live, but we are not real time. And it will vary throughout the stream, and that's due to YouTube's encoding, not anything that we're doing on our side. That's for everybody that goes live on YouTube. There's a 10 to 12 to 15 second delay. So we're not running this stream so that people can follow along instantaneously with trades. We're here for education, and there will be trades that get taken not during a holiday, but this is we've positioned ourselves as a company to not be a signal service. So our stream is also not going to be a signal service, but um, you should know that that delay exists, because if you do decide to take a trade based on something that you see on the stream or something that we're talking about, just know that whatever you're watching already happened 20 seconds ago. So in a higher time frame, as we go into next week, we're going to end this one at the upper end of value, but pretty D-shaped week. Um, not a lot of excitement. Um, who knows what happens as we go into next week, but we're a stone throw away from another new all-time high on the Nasdaq. And in my experience, those type of highs kind of have a little bit of a magnetic effect the closer that we get to them. So it's not to say that we can't roll over, but buyers have done the hard work to get it up off the lows and get us back up here. But um, yeah, also this says daily volume profile, which is what the study's name is, which I think is not aptly named, but it's a weekly, on a 1 hour chart, but it's a weekly volume profile that you're looking at. And each one of the vertical lines is just separating out weeks. I knew it would be boring this morning, but what's our range? Like 60 points. We'll put it in the Discord as well. We're releasing a small update for both the NinjaTrader and Motive Wave version of our studies this weekend. The Motive Wave one will be one that we probably recommend people download. These are just like small edge case things that have popped up since our 2.0 release about 3 weeks ago. We actually haven't had any major, once again, knock on wood, but we haven't had any major issues that have popped up, but just a few cosmetic ones here and there. So there's one, we're releasing a small update for NinjaTrader as well, but it's going to be purely cosmetic. I think it's just a menu change color, if I remember correctly. But if you're a subscriber, you should get an email letting you know when that update is ready to download from your portal, or if you're in our Discord. And our Discord is actually free to join for right now. So you can go to our website and click on the Discord link and join. We'll answer any questions you have in there, and you can get more regular updates. And if you missed it early on in the stream, we actually have a new blog that's going out each week. We just uploaded the first one yesterday. That will be a look at the entire week's delta picture for both the micro contracts for the NASDAQ and for the S&P. And so you'll be able to get some higher time frame analysis, some granular analysis for what happened during the week, and some levels that we're looking at as we're going into the following week. So that will be released Saturday or Sunday for this current week. And there's a place to put in your email. So if you want to get pinged when you have updates, that's available as well. And that's free as well. You can just go to our website and click on blog and sign up there if you have interest. Appreciate whoever hopped in the chat very briefly earlier. We were able to say that the chat works. Nothing is broken. We'll be here for another like 5 to 10 minutes and then we'll close it down since it's very, very low volume from the bank holiday for Juneteenth. But I think we'll aim to be back next Friday, and we'll put that date both up on YouTube as well as in the Discord. Hopefully the next stream is a bit more exciting and I can actually talk about the price action. Somebody popped into chat and talked about 30,605, which is way down here, which normally I don't know why we're looking at that level in particular, but we're not even going to get, I don't even think we're going to get close to that level. We have determinedly sat in like a 20-point range here since we opened. So we'll have 2 updates out this weekend. There'll be the second of our weekly blog for our Delta reads will come out this weekend, and we'll be releasing an updated version of our study suite. So that's 2 updates to look for from us into the weekend, which I hope all you lovely people are out enjoying time away from the screens as you should. I think that's going to wrap things up for us, though. Appreciate everybody tuning in and allowing us to do a quick live test of everything. Um, Feel free to come join us in the Discord if you're not already there. We'll post dates for our next stream in there, and we'll put it up on YouTube as well. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Okay.